26 years old, 4 kids, 3 baby dads. That doesn't look good. Can you remember the one sentence that completely changed your life? That was mine. I just want to also thank everyone for coming. As I continue to talk, I think you will see why I have become so passionate in the pro-life community, why I have started to use my voice, and why I enjoy coming to events like this and actually getting to see the people who support women in a tough situation. And hopefully one of your sentences that you may say if you ever meet those women, or just your support for those clinics, will be a sentence that a woman remembers for the rest of her life. So my story starts in Granger, Iowa. I was the middle of 5 girls. We grew up going to a Catholic school. We went to church every weekend, and life was uneventful, but in the best way possible. It wasn't until about my high school senior year that I decided to step out from the life my parents had told me to live, because it was boring and I didn't think my parents knew what they were talking about. And so I was like, I'm gonna go check out these other things on my own and see how it goes. So over the next few years, I got into abusive relationships. I was drinking, I was smoking, very promiscuous, I will say. And I ended up having 3 babies in those next few years. And so I was 26 years old when I rekindled a relationship with this guy I knew in high school. And when I met him, I was a single mother with 3 kids. The fathers were not involved for a variety of reasons. Like I said, there was abuse and there was criminal legal issues that they had going on in their life that I wanted to remove myself from. And I was on food stamps, I was on Section 8, Medicaid, you name it, I was on it. I was working mother's hours at a doctor's office. I was wanting to still be able to be present in my children's life. So I found this wonderful doctor's office that was willing to work with me for a schedule that would work for me being present for my babies, but also trying to provide for them. Right around the time I rekindled this flame with this guy, the air in my van went out. And it was gonna be about $3,000 to fix. So it was basically a totaled vehicle. But I was still driving it along, and I was gonna push it as far as it could go. When I was hanging out with this guy, after about a month, I found out I was pregnant again. And I remember breaking down in my bathroom. And I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to tell other people? I was like, first of all, I don't believe this first test, so I'm gonna take a second one. And I took the second one, and that one came out positive as well. So I was like, well, I guess this means I'm actually pregnant. So I kind of just broke down in my bathroom, and at this point, and it took 4 pregnancies, at this point, I was like, what am I doing with my life? For some reason, a 4th pregnancy was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was like, I'm really not doing a good job with living my life right now. And at this point, I feel like I can't really face the world. Because we live in a culture where it's okay to be promiscuous and it's okay to be out there like that, but it's not okay to be a parent, single parent, multiple kids, and multiple fathers. And so I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I can't fix this mess at this point. So I was like, I'm gonna reach out to the Father and maybe he'll be supportive. I'm hoping he's gonna be supportive. He was not supportive. He told me that we needed to be responsible adults and take care of this like a responsible adult, because he was not ready for a child, and I was in no position to have another child. He brought up the car troubles, he brought up the Section 8, he kind of brought up everything he knew about me and tried to use it against me to justify an abortion. I went back and forth with him for about a week and a half, and I kept telling him, I don't think I can do an abortion. I remember growing up in a Catholic school where in 7th grade they showed you the little models of the unborn baby. Like, I knew it was a baby. This was my 4th pregnancy. I knew what was going on inside of me. And he just kept telling me, like, no, we really need to do this. There's no way you can take on another child. But it wasn't until he said, 26 years old, 4 kids, 3 baby dads, that doesn't look good on you. I called Planned Parenthood. And I originally was like, you know, can I get some help on deciding which abortion I want to schedule? And the gal on the other end, she told me, nope, we don't offer counseling. You have to just pick what procedure you want, or you don't schedule anything with us. And so I picked the chemical abortion because I was wanting something that was less invasive, less traumatic, and something I could keep a secret. I didn't want to have anybody else have to drive me to the clinic. I didn't want anybody to know, because at this point, nobody knew I was pregnant. And so on May 24th of 2018, I went for my chemical abortion. And I went to the Southside location in Des Moines. And I remember as I was walking up to the front door, I was like looking around and I was praying that no one was there praying, because I did not want to face anybody who I guess wanted what was best for me, because at this point I felt I had no other way of facing life. And I was like, they're not going to understand my situation, so I just don't want to see anybody. So I walked into Planned Parenthood, and there was a security guard there, and I was like, I'm here for an appointment. And he's like, okay, you can go on in. He buzzed me in. And as soon as I got in that waiting room, it was very sterile and white. But there was like this filter over everything, and it was very gray at the same time. And so I walk up to the front desk, and I'm like, I'm here for an appointment. And they go, okay, yeah, you're here for an abortion. That's going to be, I think it was like $730. And so I had to pay cash. I was on Medicaid, so I had come up with the cash in advance. They at least told me how much it was going to be on the phone. And I paid cash for my chemical abortion with the promise that the father was going to pay half later. I sat down and I waited for about a half hour before they called me back, and that half hour was a really long half hour, and it was torture. I was looking around and I saw there was one couple sitting there, and then there were a few women sitting off in another side. And they finally came and called me back, and they first took me for a urine test to make sure I was pregnant. From there, they took me in for an ultrasound. And as we entered the ultrasound room, they were like, do you want to know if there's a heartbeat? Do you want to know if there's multiples? Do you want to see pictures? Do you want a picture? And I said yes to everything. So they turned the screen so I could see it, and as soon as they put that Doppler on my stomach, they were like, oh, we see a heartbeat already. Good thing the heartbeat bill hadn't gone into effect, because if it had, you would not be able to continue today. And I look up at the ceiling and I just break down crying. And I was like, man, if that heartbeat bill was in effect, I would have a way out. And I also remembered when I was pregnant with my 3rd child, I went to a pregnancy center. I had more support from the father, and I told the father, you know, if there's a heartbeat, we're going to keep the baby. And I went before I was 6 weeks, and there was a heartbeat. And so I had kind of this flashback to where I'm like, yep, this is a baby. I made a promise before, but I'm like, that doesn't matter, because all I could really hear was 26 years old, 4 kids, 3 baby dads, that doesn't look good. And so I stopped watching the screen and I just waited for the ultrasound to be done, and we went into the next room. In this room, the nurse just asked me a bunch of questions. I had been to Planned Parenthood in the past, so they were kind of just updating their records from when I was in high school. And the doctor finally came in and gave me the first drug of the chemical abortion protocol. And I had to take it in front of them, and they were recording me take it, so that way they could prove that I took it or whatever. And I was finally able to leave with that little brown bag of a prescription for a pain medication. It had a little pamphlet on what to expect, and it had some contraceptives in it. As soon as I stepped outside, I was hit with the heat and humidity of this May day. It was 80 degrees, super humid, and really bright outside. And the contrast from being inside Planned Parenthood to stepping outside of Planned Parenthood, that was how quickly I felt the weight of the chemical that I just took to kill my baby. It hit me like a ton of bricks in the stomach. And I went to my car and I just started crying. I broke down. I was like, what did I just do? I was like, there's no way I can reverse this. I have no idea how I'm going to continue at this point. How I feel right now is 1,000 times worse than I felt thinking of what other people were going to say about me. And so I went home and I was like, you know what? I'm going to journal, because journaling has been something I pick up off and on when I'm going through really tough times in life. And I wrote a journal entry to my baby, and I'm going to read that first journal entry to you tonight. My little one, I am so sorry. To me, you were an alive, perfect little creation, and I wanted to hold you so much. I know I had a choice in this, but your father didn't want a baby in this messy life of mine. I pray God forgives me for this, because I don't know if I ever will. I pray Mary welcomes you and watches over you. Mommy loves you very much, and I'm sorry. I will think of you daily and hope to one day meet you in heaven. I am sorry, my little one. I love you. So I wrote that, and then I was like, okay, I've at least kind of gotten some of the emotions out. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go pick up my other children, and I'm just going to forget about it. So I went and picked up my other 3 children from school and daycare, and I realized that was the next hardest part of my day. Looking at my 3 children in the face and realizing that, yeah, our life isn't the best, but I'm trying, They're here every day. I get to hold their hand. I get to look in their face. And I get to give them all the love I can. They have a chance at life. Why does this baby growing inside of me not deserve that as well? And so that whole night, I went out of my way to not look my children in the face. I remember sitting and watching TV, and I had my youngest sitting on my lap, but she was faced away from me. I had the other 2, they'd sit next to me, but I didn't want to be face to face with them. And so I laid them down, and I started looking online, and I was like, can you reverse a chemical abortion? What happens if you don't take the second drug in the chemical abortion? Things along those lines. And an ad popped up on the top, and my dad had always told me that you never trust the first ad you see on Google because it's probably a scam. And so I decided to not listen to my dad again, and I clicked on it, and I was like, you know, we'll see, okay? It looks like this number is from like California. I'm in Iowa. I'll sleep on it, and if I'm not feeling better in the morning, I will call this number. So the next morning, I woke up and I panicked when I went to the restroom. I was like, okay, this is my 4th pregnancy. By this point, I know it's normal, I know it's not normal. What I feel like is going on is not normal. I think this abortion is already working. So I called the number right away, and this very sweet voice answered on the other end. She asked when I took the first drug of the chemical abortion. She made sure I did not take the second drug, and she asked where I was at. I told her where I was at, and she, to my surprise, told me there was a local provider, and she would first reach out to him to see if he could see me, and then she would get back to me and we could schedule if he had anything available. So she called me back and she was like, yep, he's got something available this morning. Can you get there? And I was like, yes. It was a day off of work for me. I didn't work on Fridays at the time. And so I scooped up my youngest at the time and we went to the office and I met Dr. McKernan. He took me in for an ultrasound and he looked at me and he goes, I can't make any promises, but there's a detectable heartbeat that I think you're a candidate to try. He's like, the heartbeat's not where I want it, but we're gonna go ahead and I think we can try with the progesterone injections. And so we started the progesterone injections that day in office, and he kind of gave me a rundown of what to expect over the weekend because it was Memorial Day weekend, and a mom was going into labor that weekend, and so he's like, I can't meet you here at the office every day to give these to you. Can you please find someone to try and give them to you over the weekend? And so I was like, yeah, I'll figure something out. So that weekend, I told one person that I was doing the reversal and I asked her to give me the injection. Those injections are kind of awful, and if you've ever had to do progesterone injections, like I'm going to tell you, you guys are amazing, because I was only able to do 2 before I was like, I can't do these anymore. I got so sick that weekend. I think it was just my body kind of like wanting to shut down, like, what are you doing? But I told myself that I kind of deserved it because I could only imagine what my baby was going through. So I reached out to the doctor and I was like, I'm not able to care for my children right now. I'm so sick. Like, is there another option? And he told me we would meet up the next week. We would do some blood labs and we would see if the hormone levels were looking okay to continue with oral progesterone. And when we did meet up and we did get the lab results back, my hormone levels were looking great, so I continued with the oral progesterone for the rest of first trimester into second trimester. At this point, I reached out to the father and I told him that the abortion just didn't work. I didn't tell him I was doing the reversal. I didn't want him to know that I was trying to save this baby. And we got into a pretty big fight, and I eventually just told him he was heartless and I needed him to leave. And so he left, and that night I actually contemplated taking my own life because I was still very scared and unsure about the reversal. I hadn't yet been cleared as like, yep, this is gonna work, you're gonna carry your baby to term. And I was still freaking out about telling other people I was pregnant and how I was going to face the world with 4 kids and 3 different dads. January 11th, though, of 2019, I had my youngest. Isaiah, he just, I freeze up every time I try and explain him because he is just this little spitfire who keeps me on my toes, but he challenges me in so many different ways. He has helped me truly find my identity in Christ. He has helped me truly dig in and look to the mercy, the love, the joy, the compassion, everything that the Lord is, I have encountered through my journey with him. And he's just been a saving grace for our family that I never knew we even needed. And our life since he has joined us has been something I never could have even imagined. I wrote this book for another fundraising gala that I spoke at 2 years ago. It's all the journal entries that I journaled to Isaiah as I was pregnant. I applied for the unplanned scholarship through the Pregnancy Resource Center that the doctor who did the APR for was like medical director over. And yeah, I mean, it's just still me and the kids, but life is going really well, and the Lord has provided for us in ways I can't even explain. I would say I'm definitely in like a loaves and fishes part of my life where things don't ever look like they're going to get paid, or I'm like, how am I going to do this? But at this point, the Lord is my co-parent. The Lord is my father, but the Lord is my children's father as well. And my life I owe to the Lord, but I also owe my life to my son, because it's through the journey with him that I have figured out who I truly am and just how much the Lord can love. And I just want to say thank you for letting me come and talk to you all tonight.